Welcome to The Shift, where we're having conversations that bring fresh perspective to topical and timely issues. My name is Rose Lukalo. Today we're discussing a subject about the absolute mayhem that has been created by the introduction of Ardhisasa. Ardhisasa is a platform introduced by the Ministry of Lands. It's supposed to solve all the problems we've been seeing about property, land, all the corruption around it, and the integrity of the title deeds. Instead, what we've seen is a complete lockdown of Nairobi. Nobody can transact. You cannot buy, sell, lease. You cannot charge your property right now until you convert it to the digital platform. It was supposed to solve historical land issues, issues of conflicts between laws, some of them dating back to the 1920s, under which land was registered. It was supposed to end endemic corruption. It probably will in the end, but for now, all that we're witness to is chaos. I want to discuss this subject with two guests, both of them conveyancing lawyers. I hope they can teach us a little bit about what's going on and why this bottleneck. Let me introduce Irene Kiwool first. On my left, she's a partner at Mushemi and Company Advocates. She's a member of the Nairobi branch of the Lands Section Liaison Committee for the Law Society of Kenya. And she's also a member of the Kenya Property Developers Association. Welcome, Irene.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
And on my right, Caroline Kimoita, who's a partner and the business unit head for real estate banking finance at CM Advocates.
Thank you for having us, Rose.
Most welcome, and thank you for joining us. Why was this law necessary, and why is there such a big backlog?
To start with, I think we need to understand as Kenyans that what is happening currently is something that started once we promulgated the Constitution in 2010. The Constitution looked at harmonizing our land laws because we had a myriad of land laws with different processes, with different regulations, with what we needed. So, for example, we had the Government Land Act, which was basically dealing with land pertaining to government, and there were special conditions when someone had a property that was granted to them by government. We had the leasehold interests, which were being governed by the Registration of Titles Act. Again, had a whole myriad of regulations on them, very different, again, from Government Land Act. Then we had the freehold parcels that majority of Kenyans hold. Again, we had that regime had the Registration of Land Act. So everything to have harmonization, because we are one country, the Constitution envisioned that we need to harmonize all this. And that's how we came up with the Land Act. And then the Land Registration Act, which basically is the one governs the process of any conveyancing, which is either whether you're buying or selling, that's transferring land, whether you want to mortgage, and that's what we call now the charges. And what was envisioned when we were dealing with the Land Act was also to have a digital system. And this is pertaining because as the world, we are becoming an automated global village. So everything is digital, yeah? And you'll find that it's easier for me to communicate with you via mobile WhatsApp. So because of that ease of transaction, that was what was also envisioned, that let's make land also easy to transact, to simplify the process, that I don't need to go and line up at the house or at the registration unit at the county for me to actually do a transfer. Let me do it at a click of a button. And that's what was enacted in 2012 with the Land Act. And with that, the Cabinet Secretary then had a task force on place for us to have an electronic register and automation. So what we also need to know that this digitization platform has not just started. It actually started way back 10 years ago with Ngilu's regime. She started the digitization process. Then the ministry developed a system called the Land Management Information System. And this system, again, was where we were having scanning. I think there was a period people were being told, oh, your files are being scanned, so you can't find a file, you can't transact because it's been scanned somewhere. Then the system, unfortunately, at that time was only narrowing it down at registration, where you're buying a property, your transfer, it's only the land register that is being digitized. So now to have a seamless process, we came now with the National Land Management System, which now incorporates all the sectors, all the practitioners. So from survey, physical planners, the county government, then now the Ministry of Lands, NLC, all of them are in this system. And that's what was now launched last year, which is what we call the Ardhisasa. I think the biggest issue we have had, or the complaints that are there, is, as what you are saying, nothing is moving with respect to Ardhisasa. But just to demystify that a bit, there is some progress. It's not completely 100% standstill.
Yeah.
Okay, there's still some progress, but I think what has made it not be as receptive is lack of knowledge, lack of Wanjiku knowing what is actually happening with the ministry, because actually it involves the buy-in of Wanjiku. Wanjiku really needs to know, oh, I need to register first and foremost an account with Ardhisasa. You'll find Mama Boga doesn't even know that, and she's holding a title. Yeah, she doesn't know, oh, there's something called Ardhisasa, and I have to actually register, like I have a SIM card Safaricom, and have an account. So I think there's that lack of public awareness.
I think that lack of awareness is really, really critical, because right now, apart from anything, it looks like in Nairobi in particular, nothing. And Nairobi is the capital city, let's face it. You know, it's where there's a concentration of properties, very high-end value, and a lot of it is investment property, you know? So when you have the capital city and nothing can move, you have a problem. You have a huge, huge problem. Is it targeting Nairobi in particular, or which other areas?
Nairobi is the pilot study.
Oh, why did they start here? Surely.
That was a wisdom or lack thereof of the ministry that they started with Nairobi. Of course, there was interjection and advisory that let's start with the smaller registration units. But the ministry, in their wisdom, decided let's do Nairobi as a pilot study. And hence the mayhem of what we are having, of people really not understanding what is happening. Even practitioners, we are not really understanding to what extent are we supposed to be having this done. So I think it's the implementation process that has brought us where we are at.
So what happens, let me come to you, Caroline. What happens if I've built, of course, I don't own a storied building, but if I have built apartments, I've invested time, money, taken a mortgage, I can't sell them. What happens in that situation?
Just to add on to what Irene has said, information is power, and disseminating of that information in a proper strategic way minimizes the stress that comes with having to deal with so much information all at once. Because when you don't know where to start, and you understand that this exercise has been going on for some time now, then that calls for the ministry to come back and do some sort of sensitization, which we find is what really lacked. Ensuring the public is being able to understand where we are at, what we are doing. You as a landowner or an owner of a block of apartments need to take a step back and assess and get yourself equipped with information. Get a suitable lawyer of your choice who can be able to sit down with you and get you to understand what exactly are the changes, how do they affect you. Start from that point. Once you have that information, you will realize that the first step you will do with the commencement of conversion of titles is that you will verify whether your property has actually been gazetted for conversion. What Irene was preempting about in terms of Wanjiku being ready and being prepared is that if you do not know when your property will be listed, right now I think the last gazette notice was issued in June this year, and the position with the ministry is that they have actually converted all properties, but the process of disseminating this information regarding which area, which units, when can we anticipate? Because I think Wanjiku needs to anticipate why she needs to organize herself. But if ministry is only coming after the fact to tell you, check, come on our site and check whether your property is listed, it becomes a tedious process. Going to check and wondering, why isn't my property listed? Is there a problem with my property? Yeah. So
when you say converted, what exactly do you mean by converting the property?
This
is
process,
my property converted?
This process commences at survey of Kenya, requiring that Nairobi properties under old regimes, what Irene was mentioning with regards to creating a regime where all properties are registered, is that you find that they're now issuing the block and parcel numbers for properties at survey. Yeah, they go ahead and they prepare cadastral maps to be able to capture the information of your property, depending on whether it is land or unit titles. Yeah. So once that property has been converted and issued with a new parcel number, then what proceeds to happen is engagement with the gazettement exercise, the Kenya Gazette. Your property is indicated as having been issued. And ideally, the number or the new reference of your property will take the fashion of Nairobi block, this and this. You'll be able to look at the Gazette notices will provide the list of your property as it were. Maybe, for example, one of the popular ones is land reference 209 stroke this and this, 1870 stroke this and this. So if you go and you check and you find that, I found my property, and what is a new parcel that has been given, then subsequently you would then be required to proceed with the surrender of your title for purposes of being issued with a new title as provided by the laws, the current laws. So you as a landowner, it's not all hope lost. You still have an upper hand if you equip yourself with the information and then start implementing. Let us not bury our heads in the sand because this process is here with us to stay. Yes, ministry could have done better to disseminate the information such that they're working together with us. The general public is looking upon the lawyer or wakili who's acting for them or the conveyancer who's in charge to be able to get them in the process. But if the information and the stakeholders' involvement is not very well done, then you find that it's possible to have shifting goalposts. So it's very important. And I am happy that the Ministry of Lands has been willing to take feedback, even from the Law Society of Kenya and the committees engaged in the liaison committees, to take back this information and come back and have meetings with us.
Yeah.
You know, we have had some meetings this year to be able to address some of the concerns and challenges we're having, because if we're not having ownership as the practitioners, then it becomes very challenging for us to disseminate that information and equip the public who at the end of the day required to engage and transact in their properties.
Are any residents associations sitting in these meetings with you? Because it doesn't seem like there's any engagement with the actual owners. I mean, it seems like a process that is, it's being created and negotiated without the property owners.
The issue, again, I think, is the dissemination of information. Actually, ministry has tried to do a lot of stakeholder engagement.
Yeah.
Because there's CAPSA, they have engaged with CAPSA, they're engaging with ISK, that is the Institute of Surveyors of Kenya. They have engaged with Kenya Property Developers Association. So the key stakeholders are actually being engaged throughout the process.
Yeah.
I think maybe the problem is the dissemination of information by both the bodies that are engaging with the ministry and also the ministry, the engagement with the particular stakeholders. Because even with the development of Ardhisasa, you will find there used to be actually notices calling members of the public to come in and engage. I think maybe it's also our response as Kenyans. Sometimes we take a back seat
Yes.
and we don't really actively participate
Yeah.
until when things have already been done, and then it is here and we're like, oh, this was actually happening, you know? So I think it's two-pronged with respect to that issue of stakeholder engagement.
Yeah.
It's there. It has been there. I
Yes.
think I can attest to that because I have been in some of these bodies where the ministry has been calling and saying, give us your feedback. But I guess the issue is now that dissemination that we have actually engaged. These are the issues that have been discussed. This is what our action points will be.
Yes.
That has not come out very clearly. So even within, like, for example, LSK, which has been active, you will find sometimes the relay of the information is not as prompt or as fast as practitioners would want.
Okay.
For us to be able to convey that information. And with that, I think that's why I
Okay.
keep on saying, also, let's take it upon ourselves, because even with the Ardhisasa, what we are talking about, the digitization, you will look at it right now and find there's actually enough information on it. And I would like members of the public, Wanjiku, to go to the ministry website. As we have said, let's embrace technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go to the ministry website, just write Ministry of Lands and Physical, Google it. If you go there, you'll find there actually, even YouTube, you'll find that there are segments
Yeah.
about Ardhisasa. How do you register? How do you do a transfer? The information is there, but I think maybe what we should challenge the ministries to do more sensitization for people to know this
Exactly.
information is actually here and this is where we need to find it.
One of the concerns that I know those who have heard about this have is the history of corruption around land and property. And there's a lot of fear, even with engaging with that Ardhisasa, even once you know it's there, you know? How does one really protect themselves along this journey of converting, since you're saying we don't really have a choice, we're here, and really the world is going digital? There are very many pros for embracing it. It offers accountability, it offers a track record and a digital footprint, and we won't be told the stories of missing files and the stories of, 3 title deeds and court cases. But there's always the risk. I mean, you recall the story of the family that lost a house because the lease expired and somebody quickly came and demolished the house,
Yes.
on the day that, within days of this expiring, which kind of tells us there are people inside the system who, maybe not all, definitely not all, but there are people inside the system who are up to no good.
Yes.
And yet we're being asked to engage with that system. What would you say? How do we protect ourselves?
First of all, the laws, the Land Registration Act, and the regulations that have been issued to streamline or to provide a platform for enacting of the electronic land register provides a certain duty to the chief land registrar for sanctity of title, ensuring that they keep the information of the users, the information they're collecting of the users, the information they're collecting of the database of the titles and the documents, that they're able to secure that, to ensure that this information is only privy to those people who need to be privy. One of the ways this is demonstrated is the time-consuming process, so to speak, when registering on Ardhisasa. Remember, first of all, before the property is converted, it has been through survey.
Yes.
For purposes of ensuring the boundaries are in order, that the property is not in any it's not encumbered in any way as to prevent actual transfer of title. Once they have verified and cleaned up the process, and then call upon you to actually proceed and convert, you are required to go on Ardhisasa to register an account. There's information you have to give. For example, just to further explain on the privacy of the how serious privacy is, the phone number that you use to open your account on Ardhisasa cannot be used twice. Yeah, it is important that it is you who is the account operator, keeps that with you all the time. There is what they call a one-time password. Every time you're accessing the Ardhisasa platform, they will send you a prompt on your phone. So whether you're the one exercising or you have a power of attorney to exercise, you need that number. You need that phone number with you, the phone with you, to be able to prompt the system to allow you to access.
Okay.
There is also, for purposes of uploading information, they will request quite a bit of information, your photo, your details of your ID, and everything that concerns you in terms of identity. They will also need to verify your right of ownership. When you're uploading, for example, you want to upload your title on the platform, it's not just a matter of clicking upload and that is it, you can transact. They have to verify on their end. They have to verify whether you're the right owner, whether this property is actually legitimately a private property, or is it supposed to be government property? To make sure that the records are in order and that the information you're sharing on the system matches what they have on the back end.
Okay.
Yeah. Once they do that and proceed to verify the information, then they give you the green light to transact. If I may mention one more thing that ensures that the system is secure, is that if, for example, Irene wanted to do a search on my property, she can't be able to do that without me being notified that somebody's trying to access.
Okay.
Previously, with the manual process, every Tom, Dick, and Harry could go to Land's office and get something produced that is suitable, so to speak, suitable to what they want to see.
Yes.
The same regulations we're talking about also provide for two types of searches. You have a current search, you have a historic search. Okay? So what does this do? It gives you information of root of title. What transactions have been done? Who are the owners, past owners of this property? Yeah?
That's good.
Okay? So that is
But what happens in the case of a shared title, let's say, maybe a block, the example we were using, a block of flats or a group of houses in a shared property, does each house owner go on?
Absolutely.
Each and every house owner?
Yes. Everybody needs to have an Ardhisasa account if you hold a title.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what happens to the title, the original title that you share, the common title that you share?
All right. Now, the Sectional Properties Act came in to ensure that each unit owner ends up holding a title for their unit. Yeah, with an undivided share in the common areas.
Yes.
Yeah. Previously, we had long leases, but with the conversion exercise and moving on to the new regime, then there is a requirement that government issues each owner a title, a Sectional Property Act title. Now, this title will define what you own. It will give details on your unit area and what is the size of the space, how much rent you need to pay for that. Yeah. So you as a unit owner subsequently will then have to open an Ardhisasa account to transact on your property. The mother title, so to speak, would then have to be surrendered prior to the sectional titles being issued. The mother title will have to have been surrendered and the records closed, such that now there's no longer mother title. You find in a development where maybe the developer hasn't sold all the units.
Yes.
Those ones that haven't been sold will have the name of the developer on them.
Okay.
The units themselves will have the name of will be issued in the name of the developer. But in the event they've actually done the sales successfully and done the transfers, then those units will come out in the name of the unit owner. So that's just it's sort of just to shorten the process on what exactly would be the end title.
So there's no more management company per se. We don't have a place where we work together anymore.
There still is, and I'm sure once I mention this, Irene will jump in to explain further.
Okay.
The Sectional Properties Act does provide for formation of a corporation.
Okay.
The corporation is then governed and managed through the bylaws. At the point of surrender of the title for conversion, where you have maybe maisonettes or townhouses or offices, residential units, at the point of surrender, what happens is that they'll also simultaneously incorporate. This is no longer being managed or governed under the company's registry.
Yes.
This is a creation of the lands office,
Okay.
requiring that that when you put up as a developer and you put up units, at the point of processing of the sectional titles, there has to be what is called fast registration.
Yes.
Yeah, the first registration will require that you also fill in a form, an SP1 form, to enable you to register and get a certificate of registration for the corporation. You will also submit for fast registration what is provided under the Section Properties Act and the attendant regulations, the initial bylaw format, the standard format. You're supposed to submit it as it is.
So you have your own independent bylaws
Yes.
on how you're going to run your unit,
Yes.
which you then submit to the lands.
Yes, there's
office.
a standard form for them.
Yes.
But after fast registration, you can pass a special resolution for amendment
Okay.
to be suitable. Like one of the things that the current bylaws provides is that you can't have pets. So
really?
that's a standard. But you see, if you live in a space where you allow this, you can go back and make the amendments.
Okay.
In a situation where you're transitioning and you have a management company in place, as it were, then you have a year to transition. You have a year to wind up. Maybe you can do voluntary winding up of the management company.
Yes.
And proceed to transfer the responsibilities
Yes.
to the corporation.
Okay.
So there's no gap as such that will be felt or some sort of immediate discontinuance with the current process.
How much time do we have to do this? I mean, okay, you said 1 year to wind up the management company,
Yeah.
but, are there any timelines?
Yes. With respect to sectional units, or what we are calling right now, commonly we call the apartments, the flats, the townhouses, where we have long-term leases. And we need to qualify it's long-term leases where the intent is to confer ownership. Okay? That's what we are converting to go to the sectional titles, where we are being given, you will eventually now have a title.
Yes.
Yes, like the way you pride that I have a title deed. Now you'll be holding a title and saying, this is my unit.
Yes.
And that's why we are saying management company now is no longer involved. They will need to be dissolved. The timeline is, as it is currently, is by 27th of December, 2022 this year, is when all long-term leases should have been converted. Okay? And the conversion should have been done. It depends on the stage at which that particular estate is at. So if the developer has not yet finalized with respect to the development and selling, the onus is on the developer to start or initiate the conversion process. If the developer has completed and they have handed over to the management company, then it's the management company that's supposed to initiate that process for conversion. Now, if neither the developer or the management company is on board, then the onus is on the unit owners to initiate the process for conversion. When we say the deadline is this month, end of this year, it's actually there was 2 years that we were given as a country to do the conversion process. However, the ministry delayed, or rather the cabinet secretary had delayed with issuance of regulations, because we need the regulations for us to know how do we transition. How do I start the process of the conversion? Because you need regulations in place to guide you.
Yes.
But there was the Substantive Act, which was the Sectional Titles Act that came on board. That was in 2020, of 28th December. So the act itself was expressed that within 2 years, all long-term leases that have been registered should have been converted if the intent is to give ownership and sectional titles to be issued. So there's a crunch time.
When did this process start? I mean, it only came into light about 3 months ago when the the struggle was going on.
The process actually legally started last year once the regulations were
Yes.
gazetted. However, of course, again, lack of dissemination of information, people
Yeah.
not knowing that this is actually commencing. And note, the ministry had also issued a public notice
Yes.
last year around May
Yes.
that they are no longer doing registration of long-term leases.
Yes.
However, there was an agreement with LSK because we were like, there are no regulations in place. How do you stop this process? So there was an agreement that they can continue registration, but there was specific requirements for the continuation of
Yeah.
the registration. However, we strongly believe we shouldn't panic as such, because again, the ministry had indicated that they have already submitted to Parliament the proposal for the extension of the deadline from 27th
Yeah.
of December. So we hope that will be among the first agendas that will be dealt with the now current regime to extend the period. We are hopeful because there's a lot of lobbying also
Yes.
with respect to that, because the danger is that at midnight of 27th December, if there is no extension, there'll be a restriction placed on these
Yes.
long-term leases. And what we mean by restriction is that you will not be able to transact, because that's what the law has provided. You won't be able to transact at all with respect to your property or apartment until the conversion has actually been done.
So are you saying at the moment you can still do some contract?
Yes.
Some
Nothing bars
contracting?
you between now until 27th of December to do whatever you wish. You can still sell your property, you can still charge your property, you can lease your property. Nothing stops you at all from that. The only thing is that right now we need to be aware that, you see, it's a probability of,
Yes.
we are being hopeful that actually extension will be granted.
Yes.
But it's prudent from developers to the management company and also the unit owners to actually do a check and say, can we start this process? Because we
Yeah.
cannot run away from it.
Because I'm sure there's a cost as well to this. How
Yes.
much does it cost? Is it going to cost homeowners to?
Well, of course, the message out there has been that it's free to surrender and convert. There's certain aspects of that are true. However, you need legal practitioners to make the application, for conversion. So that's a legal cost. One of the sort of silent costs I also want to raise is the issue of making sure your rent and your rates are paid to date. There is no time where land's office will even in the old regime where they'll do maybe you're doing change of use or extension without making sure first you have cleared. So you have to make sure that you have cleared your rent and your rates.
Yes.
Then subsequently, if you're unit owners, please note that for conversion, even if the land is converted, you still have to go back and do the georeferencing for purposes of getting the sectional titles issued. And to do that, there's a surveyor cost for each unit. I want to point out that this is not something, even if you're initiating the exercise as a unit owner, really, mostly you'll be doing lobbying to make sure that everybody in the management company agrees with you. You can't make payments to the surveyor in piecemeal.
Yeah.
They'll give you a schedule of how much it will cost to do the georeferencing and get the sectional plans out. And that amount is attributed to each unit owner. The conversation that needs to happen most immediately for unit owners, have a sit down, invite a surveyor, invite practitioners who understand how to take you through the process, get to understand what actually is the cost for the surveyor, because actually that's your starting point.
Yeah.
Get that money together, pay your deposit, because they're also reasonable. They will take deposits and then graduate it based on milestones up until the time when you get your sectional title out.
Okay.
So there is a cost to the surveyor, there is a cost to the practitioner. Make sure your rents and rates are up to date. For the actual submission or surrender for conversion of the land, we've not really been aware of any charges. Ministry is raising official charges for purposes of actually getting your title converted and released back to you.
If in the event somebody is away or, didn't know and missed the whole thing, what is the risk to the property after, if there's no extension and whatever, and the 27th comes and goes, what is the risk to the person's property?
The only risk is that a restriction is being placed on the properties by the land registrar. So the restriction here is where it's government itself
Yes.
that is stopping any transaction being done on that particular property.
Yeah.
So that the day that you come back, if you need to transact, then at that point in time,
You have
you
to
will
sort
have
out
to sort out
everything.
and do first your conversion.
Yeah.
Once the conversion application has been submitted to the registry, they will lift the restriction and then now you will proceed after that. Yes.
And what about things like extending your lease on the land? Can those sort of things be done while you're continuing with your conversion?
Yes. You can still do them because you see, again, you need to look at where we are starting from. Okay. You start with your extension or renewal process from the county government approval stage. Okay, so because that is not being affected with the registry, you can start or initiate your application for approvals at the county level.
Yeah.
I know that before the survey and the physical planners were saying that there's also a landlock with the county government, because even them, they're starting to say they're relying on the new block referencing number. However, there has been sort of an agreement that they can use now concurrently the old referencing style and the new block number for them to initiate the process at the county government. As they're doing that, as their paperwork is going on, you can, as you wait and get your approval, which is the PP2 and the PP1, once it comes to you, you initiate now the process of conversion so that you will do it simultaneously with that. So when we talk about simultaneously is you will immediately do the conversion. To be honest, it looks like it's a very complicated process for the conversion, but it's not as complex as stated. What you just basically need, first of all, you need to understand as Wanjiko, you can't do conversion without an advocate. Okay, the Ardhisasa platform does not. You can't do any transaction at all without an advocate on board. So
why is that?
That has always been there. Again, I think it's issue of enforcement of laws that have been there, because most conveying transactions, you needed an advocate. It's been there. It's only that you see because of the manual space, you'll still find a surveyor will go and do a transfer registration or do an agreement because it's there. But when you look at actually the law as it is, you'll find conveyancing is the docket of advocates. And that's what the system is basically doing. The system is not bringing anything new or outside what the law is. So whatever you see in the system, it's actually what the laws are. That's why they say any transaction, because this is a conveyancing process, you need an advocate on board. So you start with the advocate. There's a form you just fill in, which is called the LR97, which is asking for the replacement of title.
Yeah.
You must have had your Ardhisasa account. And the good thing is it's a click of a button. It will take you when you're doing the signing, because you need to sign on the platform. It's usually when you are being engaged as a property owner, you'll find maybe it takes you more like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
To engage with the system, finish that transaction, and your advocate proceeds. The intent was actually that this process will take between 7 to 14 days, and you have your titles. Unfortunately, there's some bit of delays, but the titles are actually coming out. So that's when, once you finish the conversion, you immediately now proceed to the approval process for the renewal of the lease.
Do you have an idea how many titles are we talking about in Nairobi?
Currently, I know what has said the clean titles are around 100,000 titles. They have said that the ministry has clearly said that these are clean titles and we are aware of the sanctity of these titles. But of course, Nairobi being the hub and the developments, and we have also, I don't know if they have really accounted the units, I doubt. So for me, I'm thinking we have more or less, if I look at also long-term leases, over 500, Carol?
Quite a number.
Yes.
Yeah, could be more.
Could be more, yes.
Even that sounds little. I mean, the whole city. I mean, or how are they, it depends, I guess, how they're describing Nairobi also in terms of
Yeah, and
borders.
what she
Yeah, because if
mentions.
you look at the gazettement, because maybe we should look at the gazette notices, I think we are over 17,000 when you look at the listing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, over, is it 77,000?
Could be, because I think
77.
they've done about 18 issues right now.
Yes.
Okay.
On the notices, and there are
Okay.
normally quite a number of properties listed there. Of course, not to mention the individual units once the titles are out, the numbers in terms of title owners.
And as we wind up, it sounds like everything is now with the Ministry of Lands. What's the role of the county government in all this? I mean, I think many of us in Nairobi, we deal primarily with the county government for our rates, our rents, our, many of these
The
things.
role of the county still remains as it is.
Yes.
All we just need to have is that what we are transitioning to is just a digital platform. But everything, the system, the processes is the same. So the role of the county, if your property is rateable, then you still have to pay your rates to the county government.
Yeah.
If the approvals that you require, depending on what you're dealing with, if it's change of user, you still need to go get your approvals at the county government. If it's a renewal and extension of your lease, you still need to go to the county government and get your renewal. Subdivision, amalgamation. So all the approvals that you have been doing or seeking
Right.
to the county government, it's still there. They have not lost their space within this digitization or electronic conveyancing, as we are calling it right now.
Well, thanks very much for that very in-depth knowledge and background to that. I see a lot of lawyers getting rich in the next year. But I think it was worth having both of you here, having that knowledge and bringing it to bear. And I hope that it will bring clarity to a lot of people. Like you say, we have until 27th of December. That's what we should be working with, as we hope for an extension.
Yeah.
But let me thank you both very much. Irene, Caroline, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.